I believed in lifelong friendship. 35 years with Linda. 35 years of shared secrets, broken marriages, hospital rooms, and late-night phone calls that lasted until sunrise. I stood beside her through 2 divorces, through bankruptcy, through burying her mother. When she had nothing left, I gave her a job. My name is Catherine Westbrook. I'm 62 years old, and I built CW Designs from my kitchen table into a $15 million fashion brand. Manhattan women carried my handbags like quiet armor. Every stitch, every clasp, every detail came from 20 years of 16-hour days. Marcus Chin handled operations. Brilliant with numbers. Efficient. Ruthless when needed. I trusted him. That was my first mistake. That rainy Thursday in October, I went back to the office after hours to grab some sketches. The building was quiet. The lights dimmed. My heels echoed against marble floors. Then I heard voices in the conference room. Linda. Marcus. The door was slightly open. So we're agreed, Marcus said calmly. We push her out by January. I stopped breathing. Linda laughed. She'll never see it coming. Catherine's too trusting. And in that moment, I realized something. Loyalty isn't always devotion. Sometimes it's just the calm before betrayal. And I hadn't even heard the worst part yet. Because the next sentence would change everything. I didn't move. I couldn't. My hand was still on the cold brass doorknob when Marcus spoke again. We just need her signature on the expansion authorization. Once the debt transfers to CW Holdings, she carries the liability. The board will remove her within weeks. Silence. Then Linda. Soft. Certain. She'll sign. She always signs. She trusts me. My stomach dropped. Expansion authorization? I never approved any expansion. Marcus continued, voice smooth as silk. The new warehouse lease, the offshore production contract, the credit line increase. Once it's executed, the numbers will bury her. It'll look like reckless leadership. Linda sighed. After all these years, she deserves to rest anyway. Deserves to rest. They were preparing to bankrupt me and calling it mercy. I stepped back before they could see my shadow under the door. My pulse pounded in my ears, but my face stayed calm. 62 years of boardrooms had taught me one thing. Never react in the hallway. React in the paperwork. I walked to my office, shut the door quietly, and opened my laptop. There it was. A scheduled board meeting for Monday morning. Agenda Item 3, Expansion Approval. Attachment pending. They were waiting for my signature. They thought I would skim it. They thought I wouldn't read the clauses. They forgot something. I built this company from nothing. I knew every corner of it. And if they wanted my signature, I would give them one. Just not the one they expected. Because betrayal is dangerous. But underestimating the founder? That's fatal. Monday morning arrived dressed in silk and deception. The boardroom overlooked Manhattan, glass walls, steel edges, the illusion of transparency. Linda sat to my right. Marcus across from me. Both smiling. I brought pastries. I've learned something about predators. They relax when you look harmless. Marcus began the presentation. Charts. Growth projections. Strategic expansion. Words polished to shine. The numbers looked bold, aggressive, impressive. Dangerous. He slid the final document toward me. Just a formality, he said lightly. Linda squeezed my hand. You deserve this next chapter, Catherine. I looked at the document. They'd buried the poison in subsection 14C, full personal liability tied to performance guarantees. If revenue targets weren't met within 12 months, the debt would legally attach to me as majority signer. They thought I wouldn't notice. I turned the page slowly. Then I signed. Marcus exhaled. Linda smiled wider. The meeting adjourned with quiet celebration in their eyes. But what they didn't realize. I hadn't signed the original contract. I signed the amended version my attorney prepared at 3:17 a.m. The one that inserted a controlling clause into Section 9A. Any executive who knowingly misrepresented financial projections in pursuit of personal gain would trigger an automatic forensic audit and immediate suspension pending investigation. And the amendment? It required 2 additional signatures. Marcus. and Linda. They had signed before me. They never read what I added. And by 4 p.m., the forensic accountants were already inside the building. Because betrayal isn't about emotion. It's about patience. And I had just pulled the first thread. They wanted me out by January. They didn't realize January was coming for them. By Tuesday morning, the atmosphere had shifted. No music in the design studio. No casual laughter near the espresso machine. Just whispers. 2 forensic auditors from Grant and Rowe Compliance sat in the small conference room with sealed laptops and unreadable expressions. Marcus tried to act composed. Linda tried to act confused. I acted surprised. By noon, Marcus was sweating. By 2, the first discrepancy surfaced. Inflated logistics costs. Duplicated vendor payments. A consulting firm registered under a shell corporation. The shell corporation traced back to an LLC. The LLC traced back to Marcus. Linda's signature appeared on 3 approval emails. She went pale. I didn't read those thoroughly, she whispered when confronted. That was the problem. She never read thoroughly. Marcus finally snapped around 4:45 p.m. This is ridiculous. Catherine approved the expansion. The lead auditor adjusted her glasses. She approved an amended agreement, she said calmly. One that requires full disclosure of executive compensation adjustments. Compensation adjustments. A polite term for siphoning money. Linda's eyes found mine across the table. For 35 years, I would have softened. I didn't. You said I deserved to rest, I told her quietly. I've decided you were right. At 6:12 p.m., the board voted for temporary suspension of both executives pending full investigation. Security escorted Marcus out first. Linda lingered. Catherine, please. But trust, once fractured, doesn't negotiate. It recalculates. And this was only the beginning. Because the audit wasn't the real consequence. What came next would cost them far more than their titles. By Friday, the numbers were undeniable. Over $2.4 million redirected through inflated vendor contracts. Performance bonuses tied to falsified projections. Strategic consulting fees wired offshore. Marcus stopped answering calls. Linda didn't. She came to my townhouse that evening. No makeup. No confidence. No armor. Just regret. I never meant for it to go this far, she said, standing in my foyer like a stranger. That sentence fascinated me. Because betrayal never means to go far. It just takes one small rationalization at a time. It was Marcus, she insisted. He said you were stepping back anyway. That this was just restructuring. And the money? I asked quietly. She couldn't answer. 35 years collapsed into silence. I remembered hospital rooms. Birthday cakes. Holding her hand when her second marriage ended. But memory is an immunity. I had already filed the civil complaint that afternoon. Full restitution. Asset freeze. Personal liability enforcement. Marcus would face criminal investigation once the audit concluded. Linda, as co-signing executive, would be named in the suit. I would have given you anything, I told her calmly. You chose to take it instead. Her voice cracked. Are you really going through with this? I looked at her, not as my friend, but as a board member. Yes. Because leadership isn't about revenge. It's about consequence. And they had mistaken my kindness for weakness. They would never make that mistake again. But the real shock didn't hit until Monday morning, when the shareholders discovered what I'd done next. Monday morning. Full shareholder assembly. Press quietly waiting downstairs. Marcus's suspension was already public record. Linda's name was circulating in financial blogs. The board sat stiff, uncertain. I walked in wearing navy silk. Calm. Controlled. Certain. I have 2 announcements, I began. Silence swallowed the room. First, the forensic audit confirms executive misconduct. Civil proceedings are underway. The company will recover every dollar. Murmurs. But that's not the real update. I clicked the remote. The screen shifted to a new slide. CW Designs, Founder Transition Plan. Gasps. I've spent 20 years building this company, I continued. And the last week reminded me of something important. You don't just protect a business. You protect its future. I am stepping down as CEO at the end of this quarter. Shock. but not because I was pushed. Pause. Because I now own 78% controlling interest. The room stilled. During the audit chaos, I had quietly bought back diluted shares at discounted panic prices. Investors who feared instability sold quickly. I purchased strategically, silently, and I will appoint a new CEO of my choosing. Someone who understands loyalty. I let the word settle. Linda wanted me out by January. Marcus thought I wouldn't read the fine print. Instead, I consolidated control, removed corruption, and strengthened the company's value in 1 quarter. The press later called it decisive leadership. The blogs called it ruthless. But I call it something simpler. Necessary. Because betrayal may try to rewrite your story, but the founder always holds the final draft.